these people on the street are real people with
Yeah.
real lives,
Yes.
real personalities, real worldviews, and we cannot treat them as just another number, right? You cannot approach conversations saying, hey, I'm going to get my numbers up today. I'm going to hit a dozen conversations today. I'm going to get this person one step closer to God. No, you're interacting with a real person here, and it's really important to be able to connect with them on that level. People are going to forget, most likely, are going to forget what you say, but they will not forget the way that you made them feel. I think that you two are single-handedly keeping the movie theater industry afloat.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you something. All right. This month, I think I've been to theater 4 times.
Four times? That's more than I've been as an adult, I think. And I've been an adult for 6 years.
Dude, let me tell you a dangerous combo, all right? So I've been hitting up Regal, but right before then, I've been going to Duck Donuts, getting myself a donut, a Cinnabon donut, a French toast donut, any of those other donuts that are just going to put you right to sleep.
So,
Dude.
This dude.
That's crazy.
The most delayed.
Well, okay, so you get the donuts.
Yeah, I get the donuts, go to theater, get a bag of M&Ms.
Uh-huh.
I'll buy my sister, I've been taking my sister, medium slushy, and that thing is like 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
And then get in the theater, I'm out.
All right, okay. So you just go to sleep. So essentially, he pays a lot of money to take a nap in a movie. Yeah, it's $100 nap.
The movie. I made it through Superman. I made it through Fantastic Four.
All right, there you go.
But I can't, and I made it through F1. But other than that, I've been gone.
If we're talking snacks though, before a theater, like I would rather go to Five Below and get the $1 boxes of like lemon heads or M&Ms or something like that.
Yeah.
It's cheap because the theaters is like pretty expensive now. I went 5 times this summer, so that's the documentary on miracles from Sean McDowell, Karate Kid, Jurassic, Superman, and Fantastic Four. Karate Kid was,
keeps track.
That's like, dude, 5 times. Yeah,
He's got a list of it.
Just checking it twice out here. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad for you guys. I remember my sisters and I would always go to Dollar General beforehand. We'd grab a bunch of candy, put on our pants, and then walk in. One time, actually, I went with my friends, and my friend had a drawstring bag full of snacks and drinks and stuff like that. And they pulled him aside and they checked his bag. And we thought that he was going to get kicked out. But then he just ended up joining us with the bag 2 minutes later. And they were like, yeah, they were just checking for weapons. I was like, the movie theater? We're not seeing anything crazy. I don't remember what we were watching, but that's my recollection of my snacks in movie theaters.
Yeah.
Just for the record, we don't ever recommend disobeying rules.
Yeah, for sure.
And we would never do that.
What's the craziest thing you've snuck into the movie theater?
Probably a person. You show someone 6 tickets, you bring 7 in.
Dude, I got Chick-fil-A in. I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome back to the Why to Believe podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Grant with us, joining us. For our audio listeners, Grant looks like if you combined Daquan and I into a person. And then that's him. So we got the 3 of us today, and we're super excited that Grant's here. And our topic for today, we're going to be talking about street evangelism, maybe why it's good for us to begin doing something like that, and some tips and tricks for slowly easing into that. So that everyone is kind of aware of what's going on at Why to Believe. Daquan is the one that kind of spearheaded this whole initiative for us about a year ago, where we began to do more and more street evangelism. He'd done a lot of that in the past, but we as an organization started to do that more and more. And we've seen a lot of fruit from that. And it's been very impressive to see the way that God has worked through our organization in that way. And we definitely want to be able to equip all of our listeners who may have a desire to do that to be able to go out and evangelize on the street as well. Yeah. So Daquan, I'm curious, I didn't ask you this beforehand, I apologize, but if you could share maybe a little bit of your story, especially maybe before you got to Why to Believe, and your experience with the street evangelism stuff, maybe your heart behind why you love this so much.
Yeah, so when I first became a Christian, I ran into a lot of opposition, and I ran into a lot of difficulty sharing my faith and maybe giving reasons as to why I chose to follow and believe in Jesus. But once I came to the realization that Christianity is true, my conclusion was that this changes everything. And if it does, I have to be more zealous about going out and telling others about Jesus. So that meant my classmates in high school, and that eventually meant going and knocking on doors outside. Now, fortunately enough, in my local church back home, we had an apologetics and evangelism ministry where we would be in a classroom, we'd go over apologetic topics, and then once a week at that time, we would go out and either knock on doors or we would go downtown in the city where I was from. And so that kind of like fostered this passion and this desire that I now have to go out and do evangelism wherever, really, whether that's door knocking or college campuses that we go to, and just wherever we can go. So
Yeah, so how long would you say that you've been doing this? Because I know that you established a different club over on our college campus and stuff like that.
yes, yeah. So I established another club recently. But I led that for about a year and a half. We called it Living Out Acts. Just throughout the book of Acts, we see those who are unapologetically sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout the Mediterranean, right? And so that's the
Unapologetic apologetics.
there you go. That's your thing.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Look at me.
And so we did that. And so total though, like from getting plugged in with the ministry back home, even leading that ministry here and then till today, about 6 years I've been doing street evangelism.
Man, yeah, that's a while. Yeah, and I remember around a year ago at this point, I had never done anything like that. I had never shared my faith really with anyone that I didn't know relatively well. I at least knew their names before I started that kind of conversation. And so whenever I heard that as part of my job at Why to Believe, I was going to have to start doing the street evangelism stuff, I was kind of freaking out a little bit because I had never done something like that before. And I wanted to play it cool because, I'm a cool guy.
Yeah, there you go.
But I really was worried about how do I begin that kind of conversation? How do I feel equipped to be able to talk about my faith with others? And what's going to happen if I end up being challenged and I don't know how to respond? Like, is Jesus going to like become a non-factor, or like all these different things? And I'm very thankful that I was kind of pushed out of my comfort zone, and hopefully through this podcast we can push others out of their comfort zone to be able to start doing this kind of stuff, because it really is such an impactful, really cool ministry. So Daquan, my first question for you is, whenever you are preparing to go out and evangelize in the streets, what are some of the factors that you take into consideration in terms of how you prepare beforehand, maybe spiritually or even physically, maybe how you choose your spots to go out and stuff like that? Just tell us, what does that preparation phase kind of look like for you?
Well, first it begins throughout and ends with prayer, right? I want to be obedient to wherever the Spirit is leading so that I can honor the Lord in all that I do, right? And so I'm praying for those that I'm going with. I'm praying for myself. I'm praying for those who I'm going to be speaking with, and in the environment that we're going to be in, right? Because one of the important factors that's probably on everyone's mind is like, I don't want to go anywhere where I could get hurt, right? So obviously I don't want to take a group somewhere where something bad could happen. So that's another prayer for the environment. And so prayer, and then if I know there is a certain objection that I'm going to run into, I may do a little bit of research on that. And if I'm with a group of people who may not have a lot of experience or may be a little bit nervous, I would definitely want to talk to them about the fears that they have and seeing how we can work through these things so they can potentially have more confidence as we're leading into that encounter or that outreach or whatever we're doing that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Grant, you and I spend a lot of time together as kind of a duo whenever we're out doing street evangelism. We're kind of the dynamic duo, right? You're Robin, I'm Batman, obviously. And
Sure. We'll give it to you this time.
Yeah. And we hear a lot of pretty insane claims sometimes, pretty incredible worldviews. But I'm curious, what are some of the most common worldviews that you hear, at least in Central Virginia where we are, that you should maybe be the most prepared to kind of have objections to and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The most common one that I think we run into, honestly, is this new age spiritual belief system. I mean, it's not like a formal organized religion or anything, but people nowadays are searching for meaning, but without the organized structure that Christianity or something might provide. And so one of the most common things I've run into is people who have all these different spiritual beliefs, don't really know where they come from, and just are kind of thrown together and they kind of build their own religion.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of inconsistency in people's worldviews, but they're not atheists. They don't believe in that there's not a God at all or anything like that. I would say that you also have to be aware of the cults. There are certain different cult groups that are present here, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. And yeah, those are probably the most common that you'll run into. I think something that's kind of unique to this area is the cultural Christianity dichotomy, or the people who have heard of the gospel and not really responded to it, even though they think they might have. You know, and so I think that's very common in the Bible Belt where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anywhere in the South where it is culturally expected of you to be a Christian or to at least be spiritual, it is very frequent that you will have people that say, yeah, I'm a Christian. And then if you ask them to articulate anything about their belief system, it just falls flat immediately. Or it becomes something like, yeah, you know, I pray. And that's about it, you know? And so it's almost just as important in those moments to be able to respond to them as well and equip them to be able to defend their faith, or even perhaps challenge what their beliefs are at all. If they really do have their own individual belief and relationship in Jesus Christ, or if they are just kind of bandwagoning with their family, you know? And that can be a scary conversation sometimes, and it definitely takes some tact and some wisdom.
Yeah, I would definitely say, you know, one thing that I've experienced a lot, and I read this in a book a while ago, it said that really when you're engaging with cultural Christians, you have to convince them that they're lost, right? Like most people who are in that space where they've heard the gospel, they've grown up with in a Christian family or around Christians, going to church and whatnot, they're not often aware that they don't actually believe and follow Jesus. You know, they just assume that, oh yeah, I know these things, I've been to church, I must be good to go.
Yeah, and that takes a whole, because I think about the thief on the cross, right? His theology was probably whack because he had like 2 minutes to figure it out, you know?
Right.
But his belief in Jesus was still very real and still, and so we want to make sure in our conversations that we are ensuring that we have a solid foundation for our faith, and the people that we come in contact with do as well. We don't want to just be like, you know, if you don't know certain passages of the Bible, then you're not a Christian.
You're done for.
Yeah, exactly. And so you've got to, it requires wisdom, it requires knowledge on your end beforehand, ensure that you know what the gospel really is, and so on. And Daquan, do you have anything that you'd add on to that?
Yeah, I like when I'm running into those kind of people, instead of using the word Christian, and you kind of hinted at this, I prefer to use the phrase like follower of Christ. What does it mean to be a follower of Christ? And I'm curious as to how they would answer that question. And then with their answer, I just want to go to the text. Like, how did some of the individuals in the text follow Jesus? What are some things that Jesus commands those who follow him do, don't do, say, don't say? And I just like leave it to them to figure out, okay, is it lining up with what we see in the text?
Do you think that Jesus would sneak snacks into the movie theater?
That's good.
I might be in trouble. I might be in trouble.
Maybe you guys are close
Oh,
Christians.
yeah, maybe.
Reverse.
That's
crazy.
Well, I want to go back to this category of people, because I think that you're right, Grant, that there is this growing trend in America and maybe even around the world, although I can't really speak to that, but where we have people that are kind of disassociating with organized religion and the more traditional religions, and even cults with Mormonism and J-dubs and people like that. And they're instead just kind of saying, I believe that there is something spiritual out there. It is hard to tell what that is. It might give them some sort of moral compass or something like that. But apart from that, they think that the spiritual world is not knowable, and that it is, at least by the way they live, relatively unimportant. Because if it was important to them, then they would have more questions perhaps about the way that they're living and stuff like that. So Daquan, I'm curious, how do you kind of start a conversation once you can kind of tell that this person is trending in this spiritual but not religious kind of realm? How do you ask pointed questions to direct them back to the gospel?
Yeah. So first, and we kind of talked about this. I don't want to have this one method that I use for every person that I encounter, but when I'm approaching someone who maybe I don't know a lot about their beliefs or why these beliefs are held by that person, I want to ask a lot of questions. And so with that person, I want to say like, hey, like, what do you mean by you don't like organized religion? What is organized religion? What do you mean by spiritual, like you're spiritual? Or what are you seeking, right? Is there anything that you are seeking? And then just based on those answers, I kind of want to navigate and move this conversation closer to what one should be seeking and what they're ultimately looking for and desiring. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, and maybe we should have talked about this earlier. I didn't really think it through, but I think that a big part of that is the way that you open the conversation, the way that you start a conversation with someone, because very rarely do I get stopped on the street and talked to by anyone that I don't know, right? That's just a rare occurrence nowadays. And anytime it does happen, it's someone trying to get me to come to their store or sell me something, or maybe just make some sort of passing comment. And so it can be definitely awkward on our end whenever we're trying to go out and evangelize, and it can be awkward on their end as well, as they're trying to just like go out and shop in downtown or do whatever else. So Grant, what are some of the most effective methods and questions that you've used to be able to ignite good conversation whenever you're out on the street?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I also just want to say, like, what you just said right there, how you open a conversation is so important. I remember when I first started doing apologetics and would go up to talk to people, oh my gosh, I was terrified. And, but one thing that really, really helped me was I was like, I'm not trying to, lead these people down my five-step path or through this method, right? But I'm actually trying to engage with a person out of love for them, right? And love cares about what they believe. Even going back to the New Age thing really quickly, the hardest part about engaging with people who are spiritual but not religious is that their beliefs are all over the place, right? And so in order to actually share the gospel with them and to kind of confront maybe some of the beliefs they have, you have to love them enough to go into the weeds, right? To go in and see what they actually find as valuable in their worldview, right? And so I think engaging them out of love and desiring to really know them is really important. I think ultimately that shapes how you ask questions, right? Because the questions you're going to ask are going to be different based on each individual person, right? It's each individual person is kind of its own case study, right? Where you're going in and you're like, man, how can I ask questions that are loving, but that also bring out the things that are valuable in a person's worldview, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when we go do evangelism, though, we do have a few questions that we really begin with, right? So like something we'll ask very frequently is like, what is the meaning of life? Or do you believe that God exists? And we'll leave those things open-ended, right? So they can respond how they want. And then from there, right, based on their response, you can go probe further. But I think some of the best questions that we do is like, what do you believe the meaning of life is? Does God exist? What do you think about Jesus? Right?
What's the biggest problem in the world?
Yes,
we
that's
started
a
asking
good
that
one.
one recently. I like that one
Absolutely.
a lot because
Yeah.
I think questions like that, like you said, it's super important to figure out in this person's belief system what matters the most.
Yeah.
Is it having some sort of meaning in life? Is it determining what is morally good or evil? Like what is it? What is it that matters to this person? And why is it that their worldview fails to compensate for the reality that we live in? And trying to kind of expose those holes in a gentle and loving way. So Daquan, let's kind of role play here for a little bit, right?
Okay.
Let's say that I'm just some random guy on the street and you're walking up to me and you're about to start a conversation, because I want to be able to give a couple of examples here of just like, because normally you don't just walk up to someone and be like, hey bro, what's the meaning of life? So what is
Gideon
it?
might.
I might. What's an easy way to kind of just ease into that kind of conversation?
Yeah. So I would usually, obviously.
Role play with me.
Role play. Okay. So, hey, how you doing, sir?
I don't want to talk to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
And so you move on. Like
yeah.
I'm not going to talk to anybody who doesn't want to talk. Like I can't force you.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone gives me some response, like, which by the way, I've never gotten that, I would just keep moving and talk to the next person.
I'm just built different, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Here's the thing, right? Is like, how many people, like, would you be mad if someone came and asked you a question randomly on the street? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so that's also something you have to keep in mind as you're going into it, right?
Yeah. Like most people are fine with that.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do take two. Take two.
Okay, take two. Hey, sir, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. So me and my friend Grant, we're out just asking people questions.
Okay.
And we were wondering if you had a moment to answer some quick questions.
Yeah, I got a moment. What's going on?
Okay, cool. So first, what's your name?
Gideon.
Gideon. Okay, nice to meet you, Gideon. My name is Daquan.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Daquan.
And so one of the
Who
questions.
are you?
Grant. This is my friend Grant.
Grant.
Yeah.
Introduce me.
You kind of look like if him and
thought
I
I
were
said it
combined into
already.
one person.
Dude, if that's the case, I'm screwed.
And so one of the questions that we have for you is, what do you think the meaning of life is?
And then that's it. You just launch into it from there.
Yeah.
And I really like Daquan actually compiled this survey that he made for us last semester, which I thought was really, really good because it was 4 questions that we could go up to people and we could say, hey, we're college students. We're taking a survey right now. And if you have a second, we'd love for you to just answer these 4 questions for us. And these 4 questions I think were, what's the meaning of life? Do you believe that there is a God? What do you believe about Jesus? And one last one.
In your personal opinion, what do you understand it takes for someone to make it to heaven?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you get to heaven? Exactly. And by asking those 4 questions, it was super easy to determine anyone's worldview.
Yeah.
And that's also a great way to be able to start a conversation, is to say, hey, we're taking surveys out here. But then with every response that they give, asking more and more detailed questions to be able to get to the root of their worldview and then perhaps engage with them afterwards.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, although normally just the vanilla conversation also works as well.
Yeah, I love it when Gideon will like just look at someone's T-shirt and be like, just use that as like his cue, like, "Hey, nice Eagles shirt," and the next thing you know, he's talking about.
I would never
God.
say
That's somebody
that,
said
by the
that's
way.
not him. If anything, that's me.
I know. Well, you know, whatever.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes
That'd
people
be
have
Daquan.
funny shirts, and I'll be like, "Hey, dude, that's a funny shirt." You know what else is funny? The fact that I don't know what your worldview is, and then we'll just go into a conversation like that.
Well, I think maybe on like a kind of related but slightly separate, finding common interests is a huge help in doing evangelism. So when I do see the person with a Philadelphia Eagles shirt on, like I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm using that to bring them in.
And you know they're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Well,
They can't
it's
be.
kind of hard to argue the way we sometimes act. But I think a cool story. I think it was one time I was knocking on doors at this apartment complex, and there was one guy who just really didn't want to have the conversation. But as he's walking away, I noticed he had a tattoo on his elbow from an anime that I've seen, and so I made a reference to the anime in general, and then the tattoo.
What was the reference? You're like, oh.
God, man.
Are you cracking jokes?
You'll start
No,
jumping
I
off the
watch it
balcony.
too, but I'm saying, I mean, come on now.
That's crazy. But it was reference to Naruto, and so I referenced the tattoo, and then he paused and was like, "I'll talk to you," and so that like brought him in, and so it could be anime, football, it could be anything. We all have. I think we sometimes forget that just because they're an unbeliever doesn't mean we can't have something that we also enjoy that they enjoy. So if you can use that, that's like super easy.
Yeah, and I think that brings to light another important aspect of this, and that is that these people on the street are real people with
Yeah.
real lives, real
Yes.
personalities, real worldviews, and we cannot treat them as just another number, right? You cannot approach conversations saying, "Hey, I'm going to get my numbers up today. I'm going to hit a dozen conversations today. I'm going to get this person one step closer to God." No, you're interacting with a real person here, and it's really important to be able to connect with them on that level, because one thing we talk about all the time on here is that people are going to forget, most likely, are going to forget what you say, but they will not forget the way that you made them feel. And so if you made them feel like they were an actual person that you cared about, that you had common interests with, and all sorts of stuff like that, and you don't make them feel like they're just sitting there being condemned for not thinking through their worldview, then that is absolutely a win. And I want to talk a little bit more about what is the goal of street evangelism, because it's pretty rare that you'll have people, I guess relatively rare, that you'll have people that make it a complete 180 on the street right there with you. But rather it's more about taking the small strides, putting the pebble in the shoe of the people that you're talking with. So Grant, what's whenever you're having a conversation with someone, what's some realistic goals that you can have in that conversation to be able to look for as you're talking with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing, and you kind of just hit on this, is people aren't going to remember what you say, but they'll remember how you acted and how you made them feel, right? And so I think, first off, you want to represent Christ well, right? Like we are ambassadors, is what 2 Corinthians 5 talks about, right? And so we want to live in alignment with the character of Jesus, right, when we interact with people. I think that is one of the things that we have direct control over, and one of the things that we need to make sure is on the forefront of our minds at all times. Right? If they walk away from that conversation thinking that we are jerks or that we don't really care about them as a person, then it doesn't really matter how good our arguments were or what we say, right? Now, on the other side of that, right, you also want to be a step, right? Like oftentimes you just said like someone's not going to give their life to Jesus right there, but you might help them along that journey, right? It's multiple times before you interact with someone before they actually make a commitment to follow Jesus. They've probably had encounters with Christians before, right? And you're just one chain in the link, right? And so I think, ultimately you want to ask good questions, help them to see maybe that their worldview isn't consistent, or maybe that there's a better story out there to live under, right? That life can be ultimately more fulfilling and amazing when you're in relationship with Jesus, right? And so I think that ultimately are the goals that I have, when I'm out there, is I want to just help them think about their worldview and ultimately show them the beauty of the Christian story and live in such a way that they're compelled by the example of my life as well.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are some of the things.
Yeah,
that
that's
I
well
think about.
said. Daquan, do you have anything you'd add on to that?
After that and that guy,
Yeah, that was good, man.
I would say the role of an ambassador is simply just to be faithful, right? And so that could end in someone. The conversation could end in someone coming to Christ, and to that we say, "Praise the Lord." The conversation could end from someone maybe moving from atheist to agnostic, and to that I would even say, "Praise the Lord." And I think that maybe could help develop some healthy expectations of maybe what we define as fruit when it comes to evangelism. And fruit can be more than just someone coming to Christ, but it also could be someone moving closer. It could be the believers who went out and did the evangelism are now more confident and more equipped to go out and do it more. So I think those are some healthy goals that I would just add on to Grant's.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember whenever I was kind of in the midst of this journey of getting more comfortable with street evangelism, I had this moment where I thought, man, I feel like I very rarely get to experience, even as an organization, we get to experience salvations on the street. And if that is our ultimate desire is that people would be saved. That should be our ultimate desire for everyone. And if that's not happening, then it may make us pause and say, are we doing things right?
Yeah.
But I was encouraged by remembering, and to be clear, we have gotten to experience several salvations, and it has been incredible to witness this and be able to be a part of this. But it can be discouraging at times whenever you don't get to see the fruit of that. But I recall the parable that Jesus gave, where the sower went out and he started to sow his seeds, throwing it everywhere. And in 3 of the 4 places, it did not grow well. But in 25% of the time, it actually did take hold and it did grow. But you never once in that parable see Jesus say anything negative about the sower for spreading that seed, the word of God, everywhere around him. And that is our job, is to be the vehicle that God uses to speak into people's lives and then leave the rest up to him.
Yeah, there you go.
The other people's salvations are not our responsibility.
Yeah.
It is all up to God. And we can rest easy knowing that we are doing our job and that God will do his job.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important part of this to remember.
Yeah.
Because if not, it can become very discouraging very quickly.
Agreed. Well said. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
That's a bar. That's a bar. What's the funniest way you've had a conversation end?
Funniest way.
Like, I know that, like, you're out on the street, you were talking about, you never know how a conversation's going to end. But, like, so many times, like, we'll be in a good conversation and just something ridiculous will happen.
Well, I mean, I remember one
conversation
time I asked someone if they'd be willing to take a survey whenever we were doing the survey thing. And she got really excited. And I asked the first question. And she was like, oh, this isn't about Trump? And I was like, I'm sorry to disappoint. And she was like, ugh. And she like kind of grumbled through all of her answers and then left. I thought that was pretty funny. Well, what about you guys?
I think so. This may only be funny to like Liberty people, but we went to JMU. No, it was Virginia Tech, and someone was just very curious about the Liberty Way, and just like, oh, how like can you guys drink, or what does like sex look like? Again, this is a guy who's not a believer at a secular university, so he had a whole bunch of questions of the typical college experience and how that looks at Liberty because he's heard about the Liberty Way. We thought that was kind of funny. Aside from that, it's just been typically.
Actually, there was a guy a couple weeks ago that Grant and I talked to over at CVCC who's a Twitch streamer. So I ended up subbing him and stuff like that, and sometimes I'll pop into his stream and stuff like that. I remember you and him started talking for forever about like
Oh, we were
Elder Scrolls and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
Elder Scrolls Online, dude. Yes, that was a good way it ended.
Yeah, that was a good way to end.
Yeah.
What about you, Grant? Did you have a one in mind?
Well, I'm just thinking of this one where I was actually having this really good conversation with a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden he gets a phone call, and he's gone, like
Yeah.
vanished, and like it's just that's real life, you
Yeah.
know. When we think about doing apologetics, and we've stressed that like oh, we're engaging with real people.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, real life happens sometimes, right? Where you'll be in mid conversation and things will be going great, and there'll just be some ridiculous distraction, right,
Yeah.
that comes in the way. Whether it's phone calls, whether it's like I remember when we were on a college campus, I was talking to someone and I see like this dinosaur costume walking in the background, and I'm like, I'm done. Like I can't like I got nothing else good to say. I mean, look at that thing, And so
Yeah.
like stuff like that. That's probably my favorite. Is
Man,
the
that's
dinosaur
so
costume
interesting
one.
because I reread the Screw Tape Letters recently,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in there the most common tactic that they use to discourage the non-Christian and the Christian from discovering truth is just through these small distractions. That someone will be on the verge of this breakthrough intellectually or spiritually in their walk with Jesus, and the demons who are narrating this story say something like, hey, let's really prod this person to make them think they're really hungry and that they should go get lunch and then come back and then do it. And I can think of all these times in my life where I've been like mid-paper or I'm in the middle of writing a sermon or something like that, and I get distracted by something, I walk away, then I come back and I'm scrolling on Instagram for like an hour, and then I've just completely lost my train of thought. It's so interesting how the enemy uses distractions like that seem so harmless to detract from these meaningful conversations that we have.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so funny because literally I was thinking about that this morning as I was reading. I got a few hours last night, like probably at like 9 o'clock, where I'm like, man, I should have gotten my word or done X, Y, and Z, and started watching Iron Man. And I was cooked. I didn't do anything else. I was like, it's so easy to do that, and it just shows up like in your personal life, but it does show up on the street too when you're trying to engage with people. Ultimately the devil knows that what's happening in the world, right? And that people are at work and trying to get people to see the kingdom of God and His glory, right? And he doesn't want that to happen.
Absolutely.
For me, it's usually the PlayStation.
Oh yeah.
Just one game turns into 5 games really fast. Yeah.
You're playing Madden, so that's like 4 hours.
I'm like gone.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are so thankful for you guys listening to us. We hope that this has been encouraging, that it's been insightful, informational for all of you guys, and that you guys feel equipped to go out and begin this ministry of street evangelism. If you have any other questions, any stories perhaps that you'd like to share, please drop a comment, and we'll be sure to monitor that and keep a close eye on that. And let us know also if you liked Grant on the podcast. I thought he was okay, but we'll see about all that. But thank you guys. Y'all have a great week, and definitely go out, and we are in prayer for you guys as you go out and do this ministry. If we are able to assist you in any way in this journey of engaging the culture with these apologetic arguments, then please let us know. But thank you guys so much. And do you guys want to say goodbye? Grant, drop a poem for us.
A poem? Oh, watch this.
Hey. Was that like a Morse code poem?
I was waiting for someone to actually start rapping, but
All right, bye y'all.
yeah.